Okay, we are live for episode 237 of Trek Live. How we doing?
Doing good. Excited to talk about this semi spooky topic.
Yeah,
It's excited to talk about some Star Trek today.
yeah, we've done some similar things to this in the past. For this time of year, we've definitely tackled like Halloween-centric episodes, horror episodes, but we're kind of taking a different approach this time. We haven't done a fantasy episode draft in quite a while. We've done this with seasons, we've done two-parters, we've done I don't know what else have we done. We did one like infamous episodes, like the worst episodes. Um,
Yeah,
so
particular seasons like
yeah,
season one of this show, season two of this show. Like it's
yeah,
it's a wide variety for
very
sure.
much so. So there's a whole playlist on our channel. If you like this, if you're catching this for the first time, this will be a part of that playlist. And if you want to check out some of the other ones we've done, we've had some guests on for some of them. We did a jumbo one, like I forget was that our 200th episode maybe or 150th or something. We did it for like an anniversary-ish kind of thing. Remember, we did a two-part, uh, um, all of season four episodes. It was all of this was before Discovery season four. It was TNG, DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise season four episodes. And we had two guests with us, Caleb and Jen, and yeah, so that was a big one. That's like 3 hours of content right there um, between the two of them, I think. Uh, so definitely recommend you check them out. They're some of my favorite shows we've done. I love the fantasy episode draft concept, and hopefully this might shake loose some other ideas to do like kind of themed episodes like this, episodes that kind of fit this bill. So the way this works is we're going to put up a board of episodes. With these, it can be kind of tricky because it's subjective. Like this is our sort of first first blush list of Halloween horror kinds of episodes. It hit me like this morning, last night, this morning, that we could almost do a second one of these and do like in costume episodes, like episodes where the characters go incognito and have to
Oh yeah,
disguise themselves, and that's like a whole
that's a good
different pool
idea.
of episodes.
Yeah,
So there's a couple different ways we could do this. We are looking at episodes that kind of hit some horror tones, um, that hit Halloween kind of that way. I'm sure there are episodes that are not on our list that we're going to pull from, that we're going to draft from, that could qualify. But we like that being the like seasons worth of episodes kind of range.
yeah.
So 25, 26, 28. There's 28 on here. We're going to go 8 rounds. That kind of divides it. We like to try to divide the number in thirds as much as we can, so that we're not just drafting all of them. There's going to be some left over at the end. So that gets us pretty close to that. Um, and the way I'm kind of looking at it is that, like we're kind of building a marathon or a set of episodes to watch in the run up to Halloween. Like this is your picks. This is the stuff you'd want to watch to kind of get yourself in the mood for trick or treat, Halloween, and all the
Trek or
seasonal
treat.
stuff. Trick or treat. That's right.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's what we're going to be kind of um, honing in on here. And if there are episodes that we missed, please let us know. We'll take that into consideration. We can't include them on the draft, but we'll definitely touch on them as we get going. Um,
I think there are definitely plenty of moments of like horror and things, and definitely some specific episodes. So
yeah,
it's hard to include everything when there's like some moments that are really scary or really
yeah,
horror esque, like Wrath of Khan. I think when
yeah.
they're on City Alpha with Chekhov, and
Mhm.
they take out that's
That's
really
scary.
like a that's scary and a horror thing. But I wouldn't necessarily categorize that as like the full episode. So
Right.
there's definitely a good amount of horror and scary types of moments, I think, in Star Trek.
Mhm.
But for me, I think I think we got a good batch that kind of qualify just as a whole episode.
Yeah, horror is a wide range itself. Like there's psychological horror, there's body horror, there's all kinds of horror. There's thrillers, there's suspense. Like there's a wide range of things, and Star Trek kind of covers a lot of that too. So the pool of episodes that we have, I think, kind of represents. a decent swath of them. We didn't. I don't have any movies on there. Like you could said Wrath of Khan has some stuff. First Contact certainly has some
First
stuff,
Contact,
which
yeah.
I just watched last night. Even Nemesis has some like gothic horror kind of elements with production design and stuff like that. We didn't include any of that. We kind of stuck with episodes, but there is at least one episode from each show, minus the animated series. Uh, there's some representation from the new stuff, all the old stuff. Some shows have more episodes than others, but I think that's representative of uh, how often different shows went to that well. There's a decent bit of TNG, good bit of TNG on this list. There's a good bit of Voyager on this list. There's a couple Strange New Worlds on this list. Shows that kind of delve into the horror more often are more well represented here for sure. Um, but we have a draft board we're going to put up here on the screen. We generally start with a rewatch recap. This might take a little bit, so we're going to kind of dive right in, I think, unless you have an objection. Do you have anything you really want to hit on before we get into this?
Nope.
Okay.
You could start. You could start transitioning over. I think I only watched Homeward. I think
Okay.
since we last spoke, so just one episode of TNG. But which again, in my mind, not really much to write home about, except that if we're talking about characters going incognito and dressing up, then there is some stuff to talk about. But
Yeah,
we can keep moving on.
that's true. And actually,
Yeah.
your next episode is one that I think a lot of people would include on this list that's not here is Sub Rosa. That's definitely that's an example of it. This list could be much longer. We could probably double this list and include easily other episodes, movies, and be a more comprehensive batch. But this is what kind of came to mind most urgently, I guess, and allowed us to incorporate a range of episodes, stuff, and a range of kinds of horror too. Like I wanted to make sure that we had different types, different sorts of representation from the horror genre, and not just kind of one style, if you will. Uh, yeah. So we do need to flip a virtual coin here. Let's see. I'm gonna get it up on my phone here. Coin flip online. Um, you can call it heads or tails.
Tails.
All right. We have tails. If you can see it there. Tails.
Tails, never
Tails.
fails.
Tails, never fails. So you're gonna get first choice here. I'm gonna move episodes, um, or maybe I won't. This is definitely a work in progress here. Stay on top. There we go. Yeah, we're good. I'll move episodes over into our respective batches on the screen here as we go, um, and we'll talk about each as we choose them. But as we all, if this is your first time tuning in, we can't have uh, both of us can't have an episode. Once it's off the board, it's off the board. That's the method of the draft. So um, it's a more competitive way to kind of pick your favorites, and I definitely like this approach as opposed to. I mean, I love track ranks. I love top fives, top tens. But this is just a slightly different format that kind of forces some tougher decisions and some strategy. Um, so what would you choose first from this batch if you were aiming for like a Halloween kind of marathon, get yourself in the mood? Where would you go?
I'm for my first overall pick. I'm gonna go with a tried and true. One of the first episodes that came to mind, and you guys know I'm a big Voyager fan, so I'm gonna go with The Haunting of Deck 12.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
Um, it's one of those episodes, where they're sitting around the campfire, kind of telling scary stories. I think that's at least just when we first started kind of developing this topic, it was one of the first episodes that kind of came to mind. So um, yeah, starting a little bit. I don't know. I feel like it's an easier watch. I think for me, I think as far as like a horror or Halloween type of list that I'm putting together, I'm kind of easy into the genre. So I think for me, this feels kind of right at home. So I'll start with The Haunting of Deck 12.
it's one of the episodes that doing these rewatches for Twitter and reviewing episodes that I've been doing for the last several years has like benefited the most. I feel like I've grown to love The Hunting on Deck 12. I didn't like it when it came out, and in my like in the years after that, but I think everything you said is true. I mean, if you're looking at it this as like a Halloween batch, I mean, what's more Halloween horror than that? It's so like traditional, literally sitting around a campfire telling scary stories,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's like kind of tongue in cheek, and it's cute in the way that it kind of reveals. It's there's a twist to it. Like, with is it did it really happen, or is it Neelix just making up a story to keep the kids entertained? Um, it's a good one. It's definitely a good one. There's a lot of really innovative uh, imagery in it. Cinematography is really good. Uh, definitely a fan. So didn't expect that, but I love that you went there. Um, for me, where would I go first? I think I'm gonna go with Conspiracy from The Next Generation. I think that's like there's a lot going on there too. I mean, it's you got some body horror obviously there at the end, with some really gross out gore.
yeah.
Uh, that
You have mystery
some
too.
mystery.
You have a lot there.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of suspense, very tense, um, and I have a lot of nostalgia for it. It's from that early batch of TNG. It's kind of maybe right around that time when you start to get a sense of like this is what TNG could be. Like, it's the show kind of coming into its own, doing some more serious kinds of things. Uh, so that's the one that kind of stood out to me. There are episodes that I might like more, like all things being equal, but for a spooky Halloween kind of a um, getting in the mood kind of way, I think I'm happy with Conspiracy. What do you got for round two?
Round two, I'm gonna go with kind of a similar episode. I'm gonna go to Deep Space Nine this time, Empok Nor,
Impact Nor.
um,
That's great.
which I think I think it feels similar to The Thing, to kind of all my cinema people out there. It's like this monster in the dark and um, affecting the away mission, obviously. And I always think of when I think of this episode, I always think of like that shot where the station's kind of upside down, and it just feels it's technically the same sets, but turn the lights off, and then it's kind of a new kind of new set. So, and just finishing the audiobook that I just finished. I think it feels fits kind of right into kind of some of the horror things that I um, like to watch. Scared of the dark. Definitely some horror vibes in this episode. So um, I think it's a good natural progression from Haunting of Deck 12 to this. So
Yeah,
feels good.
I love Impact Nor. Definitely, really, uh, all the horror tropes are on display there. They're not red shirts; they're gold shirts in this era of Starfleet. But some gold shirts bite the dust in that episode in some pretty brutal ways. So yeah, there's some psychological stuff going on with Garrick, some of that kind of horror. Um, but I think it hits a lot of the key kind of pressure points that you're looking for on a list like this. So I'm not surprised that went early. I was definitely eyeing that up, and I'm sure I would have picked it at some point here. Um, next for me, I'm going to go. Cyber Honey and Jeff both mentioned it in the chat here. I'm going to concur. I think Impulse from Enterprise is a good one for me. Yet again, I mean, like, what's more horror than that? Like, I feel like that's like Star Trek consciously saying, yeah, we're doing a zombie movie this week, and not making any bones about it. No apologies. This is just what we're gonna do. And not only is it a zombie movie, it's zombie Vulcans, which is like a really like, you know, we're Star Trek, we don't care, we're flexing kind of move. And I love the look of that episode. There's some really crazy lighting on that Vulcan ship, the strobe lights that are, uh, you know, headache inducing, I'm sure, for the actors on set, um, and almost for the audience. That image of like Archer with like his face cut open and blood like, you know, all over his face like the whole time is really memorable to me. It's got a great cold open with T'Pol being like dragged into sick bay, screaming at the top of her lungs, going completely
Yeah,
ballistic. Like that's like sketched into my head forever. Uh,
yeah.
I'm a big
From
fan of
the
that episode.
yeah, from the get go, it's
Yeah,
just like yeah,
it
it's got a
grabs
great
you.
score as well. I don't
Great
know if you
score. Yeah,
mentioned that, but yeah, it just
hmm
it checks all the horror boxes. It's got
100%.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So round three.
Round three, I am gonna go. Let's go to the next generation. Let's go Frame of Mind, a psychological Riker thriller. Um, I think it's the group of them trying to work through this thing that's happening to them, and it's I don't know. It's one of the it's taking away from more of like the horror side to more like the psychological type of
Thriller. Yeah.
thriller. So um, yeah, I'm trying to get a good array of shows. So I'm trying to get them all. So I think, and then also just have a wide variety of horror here. I think this is kind of steps away from some of the episodes that I have and kind of goes a different direction. So it's I'm gonna have a nice variety of horror
Yeah,
um,
you do.
in my list. So that's I'm going Frame of Mind.
Love it. Frame of Mind's awesome. That might be my favorite episode on this list anywhere, maybe. Like if, when it's all said and done. Oh, maybe a New Era episode might be the top one. But Frame of Mind's right there. And yeah, like you said, it's definitely more of like the psychological thriller brand. But I think that's important here. If we're going like a marathon of like 7 or 8 episodes, you're gonna want some different tones, some different kinds of horror represented, uh, and that's a good example of maybe a little bit more of a subdued, psychological approach to the horror genre. And it's really good. I think it's a good strong episode. Some of these episodes on this list, you might be picking for different reasons. Um, they hit the horror tropes, but they might be a little more of the cheesy variety or
Yeah,
the maybe the less successful.
yeah,
Obviously, all that's subjective, but certainly for my money, less successful, but hit the horror tropes really well. Um, where Frame of Mind is like kind of the best of all worlds. It's really strong, really good, and definitely fits the bill, I think. Um, for me, I'm going to go with one I just recently watched that I've grown to like. I think maybe I'm ranking it higher this time around on the rewatch than I have ever before, which is The Assignment from Deep Space Nine. I think the like having your spouse possessed and having like the knowledge of everything that the spouse would know and like is using against you uh, to leverage you to do stuff you really don't want to do is a really
yeah,
is a really
yeah,
cool approach. It's a good idea. It's something that's like unique to Deep Space Nine in that you have Chief O'Brien's a married guy. He's kind of an everyman. He has like the character's built to handle that situation and to give the audience a really good in for this kind of
yeah,
story, right? So um, I you know, Rosalind Chow as Keiko O'Brien is very much like a consistent presence from like that middle portion of TNG through Deep Space Nine. She's in and out all the time, but she doesn't always get a lot to do. She gets a lot to do here. She gets to play creepy and scary, and there's a lot of really good scenes in this. And again, it's a different approach, different kind of horror. It's not like a spooky. It's not Impulse or Empire Noir kind of horror in that like in your face kind of a way, but it's definitely the kind of horror that maybe gets under your skin a little bit. If you put yourself in that situation, I'm not married like you are, um,
yeah.
but having a loved one uh, kind of
Yeah.
being used against you is a unique kind of story, I guess.
Yeah, and if it yeah, it feels dangerous too, right?
Hmm.
When it's a loved one, it just feels like it's a different type of um,
Hmm.
frightening. You kind of put yourself in kind of O'Brien's position. It's just yeah, anytime you're out of control,
Yes.
and kind of yeah, it's scary. I
Yeah.
think.
Using the kid,
Yeah,
using Molly as leverage.
it's like
It's
a
like
hostage.
yeah,
Yeah, kind of.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Star Trek's done a ton of those kind of stories. Including featuring O'Brien and Keiko, like power play in TNG, when O'Brien's kind of possessed by those aliens and is holding Keiko in 10 forward. Like there's some similar kind of vibes there, but this is a lot more effective, I think, on that basis. Um, Jeff can confirm that would even be scarier than just a normal marriage. Yeah, yeah, I would think so.
yeah.
Yep. Um, Hampton's asking us, I guess, a fantasy football question. We'll definitely. I'm not opposed to talking fantasy football, as anybody who knows me knows. But interesting question. Um, round four. What do you got?
Round four, I'm gonna go with a new era show. I gotta. I don't want this to get taken off the board. I feel like I gotta take it now. I'm gonna go. Context is for Kings. I think it fits my list actually with kind of some of the darkness and kind of the horror types of genre. I think this episode more than any others on my list, I think fit kind of the gore bill. I think it, I when I think of this episode, I think of like that crew member just turned inside out, um, and some
Yeah,
of the Klingon stuff as well. But it also, I think, just the gore aspect of this episode. I think even makes my skin crawl just thinking about it. And
yeah,
we're not even watching the episode here. I just from memory, I think it's got definitely some gore aspect to this episode, and it's a really good episode. So I think it's kind of like a soft kind of reboot of the show. So I think it's just an all around really good episode, but I think really fits the bill for a horror gore type of episode.
yeah. No, I totally agree. I think that's my favorite. That and Frame of Mind, two episodes you got, are probably my favorite episodes on this list. Um, Context is for Kings has the obvious like hunt for the creature on the Glen, trying to figure out what the heck went wrong. It turns into like a literal monster movie for about 10 minutes in the episode. But even beyond that, like Burnham's experience on the ship is scary in its own right. Like she has no idea what's around any corner. She knows something's weird going on. Something weird is going on the ship and has no idea what it is. This creepy captain is there and seems shady, but doesn't really know why or what's up with him. There's a lot of horror elements that are more subtle that are going on all around the episode, but right in the middle of it, there's this definite like horror movie built into it that is really good. One of my favorite episodes of Discovery, one of my favorite episodes of New Era, Star Trek, um, and really Star Trek as a whole. So you got two great ones right there. Your last two, I think, are like upper echelon uh, Star Trek episodes, as far as I'm concerned. Um, so good stuff. Um, I'm gonna go, man. I think I'm gonna go New Era as well, and I will go. Um, I'll go All Those Who Wander, which is kind of Strange New Worlds is kind of aliens, kind of homage, I guess. Gorn episode on the crashed Starfleet ship, um, planet side. Uh, I know this is a controversial episode for some. I'm a fan of it. I think it's a good, strong Star Trek. Um, but I understand where some people are coming from with some hesitation with the Gorn being used and such. But I think it's undeniably good horror. I remember watching it, and I think I don't remember if it was you, but I said to somebody, I think that might be like my scariest experience watching a Star Trek episode. Like I felt the horror working on it pretty well. And I'm a scaredy cat. I'm not good with horror most of the time, so I'm an easy get for this kind of stuff. But I think it's a decent horror episode with a lot of genuine scares, a lot of real stakes. Um, I think of the alien who's uh, infected and has Gorn hatch out of him on the bio bed is a really kind of gross out, scary moment. With Chapel being stuck in there behind a force field. Um, just I'm positive on that episode. I know a lot of people, like I said, are more mixed on it. They get hung up on what happened to Hemmer for one, and again the Gorn stuff. But um, I'm happy to have it on my list and have that be my kind of live action, at least new era Trek episode in my marathon.
Yeah, it's definitely got some gore moments to it, that's for sure. But yeah, definitely a really great pick, and yeah, and I know there's some mixed reviews on it, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, some good stuff in it.
Yeah. Radio five, round five. We're at like the halfway point here.
Round five. I feel like there's still some really good horror and Halloween episodes
Yeah.
here, but I think we're definitely getting into kind of the middle of the road as far as some of these episodes.
Agreed.
I'm gonna go. I feel like this is kind of the classic, but I'm gonna go another TNG episode. I'm gonna go Genesis.
Okay.
I think I used it for the thumbnail.
You did. So it's got to
I
be
think it's
somewhere. Yeah.
I think it's definitely one of those episodes that you think of when you think of kind of Halloween episodes of crew members evolving into things, and I don't know. There's definitely a lot of horror moments like this in some of these TNG episodes, but I think again, this is one of those episodes that first came to mind. Barclay as the spider,
Yeah.
and the eyes, and it definitely has some creepy moments in it. So yeah, it's one of those first episodes that I thought of. So yeah, I'll pick it.
Yeah. Evolved Worf, or de-evolved Worf, I guess.
De-evolved, yeah.
Chasing Picard in the Jeopardy tube definitely scared the crap out of me as a kid. So
Yeah.
there's a good bit of horror in this. Also, Worf biting Crusher, or no, biting Troy and then
Right,
spitting
yeah.
or like
Yeah.
leaking his toxins onto Crusher's face is another one. Like there's a lot of scary moments in that. Gates McFadden directed that, which is a cool little bit of trivia. Um, a lot of alien kind of vibes going on there.
Yeah.
Troy in the bathtub, like evolving into like an amphibian kind of creature. Just really creepy stuff. Really good makeup.
Yeah.
I won an Emmy for makeup, which probably deserved. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's another one that I was like on the cusp. I wanted to pick it maybe last round. Part of this is also like I'm always one to kind of get hung up on like I want episodes from different shows. Like I want a variety of the series here too.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can
It's
push
it's
decisions.
it's hard to do. Yeah. It's hard to get every show, I guess.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Without sacrificing something, sometimes it can
Yeah.
be tricky. Um, I'm going to double up here. I'm going to go to an Enterprise episode. I'm going to go to Regeneration, which is the
Okay.
Enterprise Borg episode.
Yeah.
That's got some real, like, especially in the early portion of it. If you remember, it opens on Earth in the Arctic Circle with these scientists kind of unearthing.
Not our crew, right?
Not our crew, yeah, just
Yeah.
kind of random scientist guys who are uh, doing an excavation in the Arctic Circle and unearth fragments from the Borg sphere from First Contact, which comes crashing down and has been, laying there for a century, frozen. And the watching them kind of decide to thaw out these Borg drones when we know that's a really bad idea. Don't do it. Is a classic horror kind of trope too. The audience knowing more than the audience knowing more than the characters, and being in a spot where you almost want to yell at the screen, like, don't do it. Um, is very much on display in that episode. And the other thing that always kind of stands out to me with Regeneration is I think it kind of successfully, we talk about it a lot. Like the Borg are scary in kind of those first couple appearances in TNG when they're really unknown, and maybe the more you get to know them over the course of Next Gen, First Contact, Voyager, they're a formidable adversary, but maybe some of the horror stuff kind of comes off a little bit. Regeneration, I think, brings some of that back, being
Yeah.
put in a spot where they're
Yep.
so clearly outmatched and are clueless as to like who they're dealing with. Speaking about the crew, it brings back some of those truly like terrifying elements of the Borg again, which I always find uh, you know welcome. I'm glad that
Yeah.
that's there.
Because I think there's I don't know, they feel scary again because I think by the time Voyager, I know there's like some like Borg babies that we get to see in Voyager, I think, and
Yeah.
so but going over there to like a Borg cube or something used to be really scary,
Yeah.
and I
Right.
think now with this episode, I think they feel dangerous and feel
Right.
scary again.
100%. Totally agree. Uh, 3 rounds left, and like you said, we're kind of in the nitty gritty here. We got some episodes that we might not love, um, but might hit hit the sweet spots that we're looking for. Um, there are some good ones up here still, though. So, what are you thinking?
I'm going just completely off the reservation here. I'm gonna get a TOS pick.
Okay.
I'm gonna pick Cat's Paw.
Oh, I knew you were gonna pick that.
I think
I
it's
knew
Bill talked about it at the top of the show. I think there are um, some elements here that are turned up to 100, and I think are just kind of way over the top. But when I think about like Halloween episodes, I think of this episode, and I think my list cannot be completed without a TOS camp episode. You guys know I love the camp in some of these the original series episodes. So for me, I think I'm at that sweet spot where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of a little bit over the line of a little bit too scared. So this kind of brings me back down to level ground, I guess, and I can
Yeah.
keep going on my marathon.
Yeah.
Any good things to say about Catspaw?
I
Bill's like, it's
it's
an
got
episode.
it's an episode. It exists,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's got some spooky stuff. But yeah, how do you not do like if you're gonna do a Halloween marathon? Like I would have eventually probably picked it too, just because like what's more Halloween than Catspaw? Like you got black cats and skeletons and dungeons and all the
yeah.
stuff.
Takes all the tropes,
It's
skeletons.
every
Yeah,
yeah
it takes all the tropes and puts it into one
yeah
over the top episode.
it is. It's like and a lot of it. It's like there's a lot of stuff that you see multiple times over Star Trek, right? Like from TOS all the way through Stranger Worlds. Like there are a lot of tropes that come and go and hit in different points. Cat's Paw, there's a lot of stuff that you see in Cat's Paw only. Like Star Trek never goes back to some of that stuff and never will. So if you want those flavors, Cat's Paw is where you get them. Uh, so I'm glad you picked it. I had a feeling you would. It seems that's totally your style, on brand, and I'm glad you got it. Um, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with another episode that I've really kind of grown to like a lot, which is the Thaw from Voyager. I was not a fan as a young person. I thought it was cheesy and not scary. The older I get, the more scary I kind of think it is. There's a decapitation in it. There's you know uh, there's real violence in it. There's real fear in it. It's about tackling fear, and overcoming it. I think the guest performance, Michael McKean as the embodiment of fear, is really memorable. It's definitely a divisive episode, but again, like if you're looking at it from the standpoint of like you want episodes that deliver on the horror and on the those kinds of flavors. I feel like my list would have to include the Thaw, so I'm gonna grab it and feel pretty good about it. What do you think? Round seven.
Okay, let's see. Um, yeah, the Thaw is a great pick. I think anytime I go back to that again, I'm with you. It's always been kind of one of my favorites, and I think um, definitely a mature fear for sure. As far as like, I think it maybe plays on some of the clown stuff that I think is really
Oh yeah,
kind of a
yeah.
trope just in horror to begin with. Um, yeah, I think I'm gonna stick to um, my tried and true Voyager. I think I'm gonna go Alice.
Okay.
I think that's the episode where they bring on the ship that
Yep.
they want to restore, and Tom Paris it kind of becomes infatuated and with it, and it's a kind of a pet project, and kind of goes off the rails a little bit. But I just think it's in a lot of these episodes, I just get a flash of like him just attached to it and got all the wires and stuff, and really scary, and just there's some horror kind of scary things about that, but I think there's like a psychological like takeover to obsession. I think that's really scary as well. So um, again, easing into kind of back into the genre with my list after
Yeah.
Cat's Paw, I think is a really good strategy. So um, yeah, and it's kind of a guilty pleasure.
Hmm.
I like when anytime Tom Paris has like a pet project. I think that's one of my favorite episodes. So yeah, and I also didn't realize how dark I was. So let me bring back. There we go. My light.
You're spooky too.
Yeah,
you're on brand and
yeah,
on mission for this episode.
yeah.
No,
So
Alice is
yeah,
yeah, not one of my favorite episodes, but I think it's on this list for good reason. I think it hits on all the horror tropes, and it kind of like the assignment. I think it does some really good uh, like when horror or terror kind of like infiltrates your relationship with a significant other too. It can get that can get under people's skin and be an effective kind of horror. And Alice definitely does that. The ship, this project, kind of gets between Tom and B'Elanna and creates a lot of pressure there. Um, and there's some horror elements that are mined from B'Elanna's relationship with the ship, uh, which is kind of cool. Um, so it's another one. I'm not terribly surprised you picked it. I know that's kind of your one of your comfort zone kind of episodes. Tom Paris, Pet Project, Ship Heavy. That's
yeah,
feels like a Daniel episode to me.
yeah.
Um, I'm going to go animated here. I'm going to go with Let Sleeping Borg Lie from Prodigy and put that on my list. I think uh, yet again that's two Borg episodes, but not the typical Borg episodes. Like I kind of Jeff mentioned in the chat, Devil in the Dark would be a great one, and it would. But I kind of consciously avoided like the upper tier classics, like Devil in the Dark, like Q Who, like Best of Both Worlds, where you could maybe make a case. Even First Contact, like you mentioned, is kind of left off here. I wanted to veer away from episodes that would be like tempting to pick right off the bat because they're great episodes, uh, and they're great horror too. Devil in the Dark definitely has great horror in the opening, in the early portion of that episode. But I feel like they would be like too easy to throw in there in round one. I know I wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
resist picking stuff like that. So I'll go into Let Sleeping Borg Lie. Like yeah, Q Who is probably the most like obvious spooky Borg kind of choice. But or Cyber you brought up Devil in the Dark as well. Um, yeah, I Let's Sleeping Borg Lie is another example of like these young kind of like Enterprise. These young characters don't know what they're getting into. They don't know much about the Borg. They're kind of discovering as they go and having to research it and figure out what they're getting into while they're boarding that ship. And it definitely hits on some like haunted house kind of horror vibes that I really like in that episode. So Wanted to throw some Prodigy love on here, some animated Trek, and more new era stuff as well. Um, and I really like that episode as well, just as a whole. So I'm happy to have it on my list.
Yeah, really great pick. I think I'm gonna go. We got one left.
One
Eight.
left, eight, round eight.
Round eight. Is Doctor's Orders still
It
available?
is. It is.
Yeah, I think that's the classic Star Trek. We gotta to go through this certain area of space. You gotta put the crew down, and only one crew member can stay. I think. So there's some really good isolation type of psychological stuff in this episode, and I think definitely play into kind of the horror genre. And it's just, at least for my money, a really good episode. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's one of those episodes where like there is a lot of episodes like just one crew member on the ship, but I think this episode, I think, really plays into just like your psychological frame of mind. I think when you're being alone, and I think
Yeah.
like it really walks that fine line of, is something there or is this my mind playing a trick on me? And I think that it really walks that fine line in this episode. And I think it's just kind of a good thing for real life, especially like if you're dealing with darkness, or taking the dogs for a walk or something. Did I hear something, or did I see something, or is that just my mind just playing a trick on me?
I think everybody can relate to that. We've all been in those situations. So that's again like really good horror. I think is touching on things that we can all relate to, like different situations that we've felt like we've either straight up had or come close to. Like have had versions of what we're seeing on screen. And Doctor's Orders definitely is like you're left home alone for a little longer than you're really comfortable with. And what does that what does that do to you over the course of those days? And yeah, it's a really good showcase for Phlox too. Like there's the Voyager episode that's on this list as well. It's kind of like the sister episode of Doctor's Orders. That's
Yeah,
7 of 9,
doing a
uh,
similar
basically
thing.
in the same
Yeah.
situation, right? And the the thing I like about Doctor's Orders, I think one's probably the better episode for my money. But Doctor's Orders, what that has going for it is like you get tons of 7 of 9 in Voyager. Like she gets plenty of showcases. You don't get a ton of like Phlox led 100% John Billingsley like carrying the episode on his shoulders efforts. The structure of Enterprise has Phlox as more of a supporting player most of the time, right? So that's a really welcome change of pace for that show, and it's a good showcase for John Billingsley in that episode as well. And there are some really good horror elements in that. Thinking that there is Indy on board and creeping around the corner. Um, yeah, so glad it got picked. Um, I'm torn here. Like there are episodes that I like a lot here, but I'm kind of veering away from them. I'm tempted to go with the Gemini, but I don't think I want two Gorn heavy Strange New Worlds episodes. I like the Adversary and Whispers from Deep Space Nine a lot. Um, I don't want Whispers because I already have the Assignment, which is like an O'Brien heavy kind of,
Yeah.
you
Two
know,
O'Brien. Well, I mean, yeah.
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 Um, I like one. Um,
You have TOS.
I don't have TOS, so I think I'm going to go with
Yeah.
the Man Trap. I think the Man
Yeah.
Trap is kind of underrated. I think a lot of people think of when they think of horror for the original series, Cat's Paw is like the obvious one. Wolf in the Fold has a lot of obvious horror tropes in it. Little nails on chalkboard for me, a little too often. Wolf in the Fold can't keep
Yeah.
me from picking it.
Stuff
Uh,
doesn't age well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But Man Trap right out of the gate, like the first episode that ever aired, is very much like a monster movie. But it's got a twist on it that I think is true to Star Trek. It's not they don't want to have to kill this thing. I think there's a tragic element to it. They end up having to, but I think um, having it be a creature that's just doing what it does to survive and kind of acting on its natural instincts is a really cool science fiction approach to horror. It's not just you know Jason Myers or whatever, like hiding in a closet.
Yeah, it's not
Ready to kill
slashing
you.
them
It's not
down
just
too.
slasher for
Yeah,
slasher
it's
purposes.
it's really just scary in the fact that it's like just right sucking the life out of them. And that is, I think is it the Salt or is that a TNG episode?
Salt, yeah, yep,
Yeah, it's the Salt. So it's not just like slashing them down. It's
yeah,
like just really just like taking the life out of them, and it's
right,
really scary.
yeah. Um, I'm a fan of the Man Trap. I think Man Trap works really well as like an early series episode. There's a lot of cool character stuff in it. You know, I think it establishes what life on the Enterprise is like really well. There's a lot of casual stuff on display in it, um, but there's some good horror in it too. I think that shot of the salt monster, salt vampire, grabbing Kirk's face is like iconic Star Trek, and it's literally right out of the gate. So um, I'm I'm pretty happy with my list. I'm glad that I didn't just. I was trying to like resist the urge to just pick like my favorite episodes from the bunch and just like go to like
I feel like
rank
I fell
mode.
into that trap a little bit.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
you have Cat's Paw and
yeah, I've
like
got spot
you have
true.
you have episodes that I don't think you would necessarily have like maybe in your top five, top 10 episodes of those shows. I think um, you definitely went to like straight up horror right out of the gate with, or straight up spooky Halloween vibes with, Haunting on Deck 12 and Impact Noir. And then you have a good variety of horror, I think, in your list, with Frame of Mind being like the psychological kind of approach, Cat's Paw with like the super retro, most basic Halloween tropey, um, you know, cheesy break in your marathon. Uh, I think your list is really good, and varied. But yeah,
Yeah, you for your list, you gave equal love to all the shows. I think there's no double up. It's all different shows.
I have two Enterprise.
Oh, to Enterprise.
Two Enterprise.
No, I guess I'll let that slide as the Enterprise
I
guy.
love Enterprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to try to do that as much as I could. Um, I guess I don't have. Excuse me. The one Discovery ended up in your pile, so I don't have any of that. I didn't pick the card or the lower decks kind of choice here. Um, but yeah, I think we did well. I think this was a lot of fun. The chat was off the hook today. Cyber Honey is
Yeah.
rattling episodes off like crazy. That
You
I
guys
think
did great. Yeah.
uh, demonstrates how deep this list could go. This is certainly the kind of topic that if we wanted to, we could take that season 4 kind of approach that we did a couple years ago with like a giant batch with more people tackling it. People were mentioning Devil in the Dark. I mentioned that already. There were a couple episodes I intentionally left off to avoid the temptation to just pick classics. Um,
Yeah, she also mentioned the riddles, which is also kind of
Riddles
definitely spooky as well
has some.
from Voyager.
Yep, yep. Extinction from Enterprise. That's another.
Oh
That's
yeah,
definitely
yeah,
got horror vibes in
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Um,
True.
Coda from Voyager I had on the list for a little bit, and I ended up swapping it out for something else. I'm about to hit that on my rewatch, and that's got some horror stuff in it. Uh, let's see. Um, Damage with Paul's Dream. Yeah, like, and that's a perfect example of like I wouldn't think of Damage as like a horror episode, but what Dan kind of led off with, there are a lot of kind of spooky, creepy, scary moments in episodes that might not even be like categorized as a horror episode. Um, I think Discovery's got some of that. Some of their episodes, I think, have some really spooky stuff that you wouldn't consider because of the nature of Discovery being maybe a little more serialized. Not necessarily being horror based. I'm thinking of like the the episode when they go to Saru's homeworld, Sound of Thunder. There's some stuff um, with the Baul that are pretty creepy. Um, some stuff in the Mirror Universe that's scary in that. Die Trying on that kind of ghost ship in season 3 uh, is got some good stuff. Even like Sukal on the sort of hologram, you know,
That's got some
there's some
scary
monster
moments in
stuff
it
in
too.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
So there's a ton of that, and because of the nature of Star Trek and just how much of it there is, with bending genre and telling all kinds of stories, you know, there are tons of you could talk about this for hours, I think, and touch on tons and tons of episodes, scary moments, scary episodes,
There's scary
approaching
movie.
it like this.
There's scary elements in the movies that we
Yeah,
kind of talked about at the beginning of the show. It's just
hmm
it's everywhere.
100%. Yep, absolutely, no doubt. Um, Anything that we left on the board, like if you were gonna, what's the best episode on the like straight up, like if you were just picking the best episode on the list of episodes that we didn't pick, your favorite
Best,
episode that we didn't choose.
best or favorite that we didn't choose.
Favorite.
Favorite. I oof, man, this is tough. I'll answer it. Favorite probably left is probably maybe a Voyager, like a Juggernaut. I think that's really dirty and really grimy, and there's definitely some horror stuff in that.
Yeah, kind of like haunted house
Yeah,
kind of a.
yeah, type of setup. But Schisms, I think, is a really good episode. That might be maybe a better episode. We could go Strange to Worlds as well. That's
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
a good episode as well. So I think there's some really solid episodes left. I just think I might just go Voyager again with Juggernaut. I think might be I think it's B'Elanna kind of in a different, not her normal setup. She's not in engineering, I don't think, and if I remember right, she's it's really dirty and grimy, and she's getting down and dirty. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff is a big fan of Scientific Method. That would be his choice. It looks like that's the cloaked aliens on the ship and kind of effing with
Doing
the Voyager crew. The image
Voyager
of
crew.
Janeway with the stuff plugged into her head.
She's got a headache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really memorable for a lot
That's
of people.
scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like The Adversary. That's the season 3 finale of DS9. That's the sort of pressure cooker on the Defiant, with the changeling on the loose, impersonating people and kind of having to hunt for it. Some good twists and turns in that.
Did they do that in Picard?
They kind of did. Season 3 of Picard, they do a good bit of that. Yep. I I like Hegemony a lot. Hegemony feels like an incomplete for right now, though. Like I really like it a lot, but I feel like there's an artificial cap on it a little bit until I see part 2 of that. So I don't know exactly how high it would sit on my list yet, but I'd be tempted to go there. I probably would, if you would have picked All Those Who Wander like in those mid rounds. When we got to the last couple picks, I would have picked Hegemony for sure. I didn't pick Hegemony because I have.
Feels like incomplete part 1.
Incomplete part 1, and I feel like I have a similar vibe with All Those Who Wander, with the Gorn stuff, Gorn horror.
Oh, true. That's already on your list.
Yeah. I wanted to avoid doubling on that. Yeah. So, any last thoughts? Anything that's not on the list that you saw in the chat or that you think should have been?
Is there candy in the 24th century, you think?
There should be. I'm sure there's candy somewhere.
I guess there is. Well, though, because Troy gets chocolate a lot, but that's more like dessert,
like ice cream, cake, kind of stuff. Like you see a lot of that, but candy.
Yeah.
I don't know how often we see candy in Shrek. I don't think there's much of it.
I don't think so. You'd think that there would be, though.
Yeah,
there
would
be
somewhere. There's almost 900 episodes.
I think it would be. I think it would be similar to like Synthahol. I think there would be you'd take the bad stuff out of the candy and then you make it, but it still
Yeah,
tastes
it's
good.
still good.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
true. Good question. Now you got me thinking.
Yeah.
I really don't think there is. I can't think of anything.
I don't. Yeah, I can't think of anything either. Yeah.
Just as healthy bastards. Yeah, they have to fit in those very
Yeah.
tight uniforms. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I, uh, I really enjoyed this. I love the fantasy draft concept. I think it's like I've said many times. I think every time we do it, I kind of get on the same soapbox. I really like having to choose against you a little bit and not be able to just pick a top five or a top 10, uh, kind of pulling from the same pool, but having to strategize a little bit, I think gives it a little extra juice, and I really enjoy it. And I hope we can find some. I mean, it's easy to do. You can easily just pick any season and say we're just going to do that season, um, or even combos of seasons, especially with the new shows. You know, we could do Strange New World seasons 1 and 2. I would like to do that at some point. You could do, you know, anything really. Um, but I like the idea of finding these like kind of isolated pools of episodes that cross shows to kind of unpack and look at this way. So, and especially with like this, if you have an approach like this, it kind of allows for don't just pick your favorite episode, like pick the thing that hits that vibe that you're looking for, and it that created a different thing. Like if we didn't have horror and Halloween on the top of that header and we weren't aiming for that, I probably would have picked different things. If it was just pick your favorite episodes from this bunch, I think my list would have looked different. I don't know about you, but I probably would have made different decisions if it was just a kind of random list of episodes.
Yeah. Which I like that that these like types of fantasy drafts like allow us to just like take instead of choosing the best or favorite. I think it I love that we get to flip it on its head and
Yeah,
kind of go a different direction than because again there's a lot of good top five lists that you can go listen to, but I think this is a little bit different and it's fun because I look at episodes a little bit differently, and I think anytime you can do that with a Star Trek episode, I think is fun.
yeah, absolutely. All right. I think that'll about do it. I would love to talk about Lower Decks because I love the episodes that have been dropping, but I think we save it. I think because if we come back in 2 weeks, the season will be done. We can
I need
talk
some
about
time
8, 9,
away from it.
10. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot
Yeah,
to talk about,
yeah,
particularly in 9. But I really love 8 too. I love Caves. But I think we'll hold that for. I think next time we're here in 2 weeks, we'll really dive into the last batch of Lower Decks episodes and maybe season 4 as a whole. Um, I think that's worth doing, and that'll give us a week away from the finale and some time away from 8 and 9 to be able to really unpack them. So I think that's our next topic, right? Pretty confident
yeah,
in that.
yeah,
And beyond that, to kind of finish out the year, we'll come up with some cool things. Hopefully, now that we're kind of through, once this is over, this last episode of Lower Decks, I think for at least the next few months, we're going to be in a quiet period
yeah.
until Discovery season 5 starts to drop, which
And then after that, it's
it could
yeah,
be it could be a
it
while
could be a
until maybe next
long
summer
road.
with Lower Decks
Yeah,
again.
yeah,
But I think one thing I'd really like to do on this show, just and I'm just spitballing here because um, we haven't really talked about it, but with Discovery coming up on the end, that's to me that's a big deal for me. Like we started this in 2017, right?
yeah. I think 2017.
I
Yeah,
feel like our first handful of shows, we spent a lot of time speculating and talking about like Discovery, what's it going to be, what's it going to look like, and the fact that it's ending feels like a big deal, and it's kind of been like a constant in our life of this show. Um, we've seen Picard kind of come and go, but that was a much later edition. Discovery has been around for a while. It's going to be its 5th season, but 2017 was a long time ago.
yeah. It
Like it's
feels
been in our heads for
momentous.
a
I
while.
think. Yeah,
So
and even before the 2017, there's the rumor mill was churning about what it was going to be.
yeah,
And, yeah. So
it's been a big topic for a lot of people. It's a divisive topic, obviously. Some people are not fans of Discovery. Speaking for myself, I very much am. I love Star Trek Discovery. I'm sad that it's going to be ending. I'm hoping it goes out strong. But I would love to spend some of those shows leading up to, between now and when that season ends, really kind of looking at Discovery. And obviously, when Discovery ends after the end of season 5, we're going to have to look at the show, as a whole. We did it with Picard, but I think Discovery is an even bigger deal because of more content. 65 episodes when the show's over, 5 seasons over 7 or 8 years of living in our heads. Um, it definitely, and as the thing that brought Trek back to kind of, you know, a week to week, on TV kind of thing. It's a big
Yeah.
deal. So we're gonna be
It's
talking.
kind of like your franchise guy retiring, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's definitely the end of a little bit of an era, and I think it merits some conversations about the show in general, and our thoughts on it. I Yeah, and I love talking Discovery, so I'm looking forward to that. We don't even know when it's going to air yet. They say early 2024. That could mean a lot of things. That could mean, after the holidays in
March.
January. It could mean March, and we could be
Yeah.
talking a ways away, and it could be
Yeah.
finishing in May. It could be
Yeah.
a long ways away.
Yeah.
There's some things that might impact our ability to really dive into it, depending on when that happens. But we'll find out more pretty soon here when it's going to drop, and we'll definitely be covering the end of Discovery and how we feel about it, and the show as a whole as that gets more and more real. So cool. I Jeff says, "What about a topic that highlights the best Discovery episodes that connect the previous Trek in a big way?" I think that's a big part
It's
of
a great
Discovery.
idea. Yeah.
That's a big
Yeah.
hallmark of that show. I think, as far as I'm concerned, that's some of my favorite stuff about it. Yeah. Um, Cyber Honey throwing some love to Burnham. Absolutely, like Burnham is a big deal. Um, yeah. So I think that'll about do it for this week. I think I appreciate the chat. I'm kind of watching the chat go and making sure I'm touching on anything that's coming out there at the end. But appreciate Jeff and Cyber Honey sharing thoughts and episodes. There were a lot that we didn't choose to put on the board or choose for our lists, and you guys really covered it and kept those episodes in the conversation, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, the discussion does not have to stop here. Twitter, Discord server. It looks like Bill has our Blue Sky links up on the screen. So if you guys are on that, definitely check that out. But yeah, the discussion doesn't have to stop here, and it won't stop. We'll be back in 2 weeks. It sounds like to talk about some Lower Decks, finishing its 4th season. I think everybody in chat was wonderful today. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Thanks, everybody.